what is Davante Adams going to look like without Aaron Rodgers? I always thought, like, in the inverse, well, what is Aaron Rodgers going to look like without Davante Adams?
He proved that he is not a byproduct of what Aaron Rodgers did, that he is a standalone great player.
His last season in Green Bay, Davante Adams, 2021, 98th percentile success rate versus man, 96th percentile success rate versus zone, and 99th percentile success rate versus press.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers, not that they have any kind of, verbal sparring or anything like that, but, Davante Adams did make a little bit of a splash by saying, quote, now people can't say that. Davante was talking about in regards to that'll never be the narrative ever again, in terms of he proved that he is not a byproduct of what Aaron Rodgers did, that he is a standalone great player. And, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody thought that he was a byproduct of Aaron Rodgers, but certainly sometimes great athletes need that little extra motivation sometimes, Matt, to get them going. And it felt like that's what he did there in 2022.
Yeah, I kind of disagree. I definitely thought there were people, not that it was like a groundswell, like a real big push, but there were definitely some people that are like, what is Davante Adams going to look like without Aaron Rodgers? And I always thought, like, in the inverse, well, what is Aaron Rodgers going to look like without Davante Adams? Obviously, this is what reception perception does. It isolates the player from their surrounding variables. What is Davante Adams doing as an individual player? And the run that he went on from 2018 to 2021 in reception perception, I mean, he was just an absolute freaking tear. We're talking about 79.5% success rate versus man, 78% in 2019, 79.5% in 2020, 79.6% in 2021. He was above 82% success rate versus zone all 3 years, 87.6 career high in 2021. 2021 career high, 85.9% success rate versus press, over 80%, 81% success rate in 3 of those 4 years. I mean, like, that is one of the all-time, unmatched runs for a receiver. Right. Those last 4 years in Green Bay. I mean, literally, when you isolate him from obviously a great quarterback. Before Patrick Mahomes, I would have told you that, like, the best thrower of the football that my eyeballs had ever seen was Aaron Rodgers. I mean, obviously he's a great player, but when you isolate Adams and what he was doing from 18 to 21 in a Packers uniform, it was the best wide receiver play in the entire world. And I think it's just kind of funny that the narrative is immediately, well, what is Davante Adams going to do without Aaron Rodgers? And to me, it was always like, oh, I mean, totally, but fair question. But what is Aaron Rodgers going to do without Davante Adams? And frankly, I think the results were much better on Adams' side than they were on Rodgers. And I don't think that's a dig that I'm saying it or Adams is saying it on Aaron Rodgers. It's just like, let's keep in mind here that when you isolate him away from Rodgers, he's still one of the, I think he's got to be either the first or second name out of your mouth when you're talking about best receivers in pro football right now.
Yeah, in regards to, historical data, you mentioned those success rates, but just kind of putting those in perspective, right? Davante Adams had 3 of the top 8 success rate versus man scores, all within that 2018 to 2021 time frame. So again, 3 of the top 8 success rates versus man coverage in all the guys that Matt Harmon has charted. That's, I mean, you talk about a run that's just unbelievable. And I think that one year that he was, outside of that top 10, still clocked in at number 20. That was a year that he was battling with, battling injuries that year. Man.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. His last season in Green Bay, Davante Adams, 2021, 98th percentile success rate versus man, 96th percentile success rate versus zone, and 99th percentile success rate versus press. I mean, just absolutely, on every route, as green as a damn Christmas tree, every route over the average success rate. So, yeah, I mean, I love that he said this because I think it's true, that his 1 year in Las Vegas is indeed proof that, like, I'm not a product of Aaron Rodgers. He had, honestly, you could argue that he had one of his best seasons last year. He had a career high in yards per catch. I think that's really kind of encouraging for, we'll talk about Derek Carr's new number 1 receiver later on. I'll reference that number again, but like career high yards per catch. He was like just an immediate, like, down the field playmaker, which, and again, this is not like this was a huge opinion, but there was at least some concern. It's like, well, the Packers really used Davante Adams in the slot at like 30%. Like, he's not going to be that guy with Hunter Renfrow there. It turns out like Hunter Renfrow isn't even that guy. Like, nobody was the slot receiver because they were running just like 2 receiver sets. But like,
Exactly.
there was that. Like, they're not going to get him those kind of layup looks. It's like, well, if you watch Davante Adams in isolation, there's zero concern that he could beat like press man covers and X receiver, and that's exactly what he did from a vertical X receiver perspective. Like, not only did he have one of his best seasons last year, he probably played like the hardest role that he's ever played in his career as that like pure vertical X in the Las Vegas Raiders offense. But the thing that I found interesting about this too, James, was him kind of like alluding to, like this isn't what he expected with coming to the Raiders. He came here because of Derek Carr, like kind of questioning the future of what this is going to look like.
All right, let me give you a couple numbers here, and then I'll throw out a part of his quote that I found to be really, really interesting, and that kind of dovetails to what you were saying. But Davante Adams, a career high 180 targets last year. Now, he did crack 100 receptions, okay, and that's great. 1,500 yards, 14 total touchdowns. The guy was an absolute savage, an absolute beast, no doubt about it. But I will point out the fact that his 55% catch rate was a career low. Now, he's going into his age 31 season. And I want to go back to the quote that he was telling reporters, right? Again, you say, oh, well, hey, that'll never be the narrative ever again. It proved that I am me. A quarterback doesn't make me. I make me. All right, fine. Then he goes on to say, even if I went and played like dog shit next year, they can't say it because now I've already proved it throughout the course of a season. I found that part, Matt, to be really interesting, almost as if to say he's able to read the room a little bit here, and I don't think he's got, he probably doesn't have the rosiest outlook for this Raiders offense in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes back to your original thoughts on like the decision to move on from Derek Carr, which, by the way, I think is a defensible decision because I think there probably was a cap on where they could go with Derek Carr. There's a chance Davante Adams, like why he's saying this is because he's like, man, there's probably like a, I don't know, 60% chance I'm catching passes from Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell, a day 3 rookie, like, not great. So yeah, I would have concerns if I was Davante Adams too, and I get why he's kind of saying that because it's like, and these are the this was part of the whole article too, was like these are the twilight years of his like prime basically,
right?
Like and I don't know. I mean, look, he wanted to go to Las Vegas. Like I'm not sitting here saying like, oh man, how sympathetic we need to be for Davante Adams. Like, he obviously decided he was done with the Packers. It was time for that to end, and he was going to go to Vegas to play with Derek Carr, and also because he grew up, his family's Raiders fans. There's other reasons beyond the Carr part of it, but unfortunately, this is the situation he finds himself in now.
I'm just curious to see what they end up doing there on the offensive side of the football, and what will they really do with Davante Adams?